So for this problem, we're taking a look at finding the midpoint and then the midpoints of those two, the original point and the midpoint that you just found on both sides. So we're still going to use an extension of the midpoint formula which we just derived. So let's take a look at those. So if we just have any 2 points here, let's say that we have the point A, x1, y1 is what we were given, and the point B, which is at x2, y2. Okay. If we want to find the midpoint between those two things based on the formula we had, we just take a look at finding the average of the x's and the average of the y's. So that means that we're looking at x1, x2 plus x2 over 2. And then we'll write this in order of pairs, so comma y1 plus y2 all over 2 also. Okay. So this is what we call the midpoint of AB. So I'm going to write that in here, that this is the, just abbreviate that midpoint of segment AB. Okay. And we'll call this point C. Okay, so if we want to find the midpoint, so I'm going to go ahead and section this off so we can be clear about what we're talking about here. But if we want to find the midpoint of point A and C, we're just going to apply the same thing, the same formula. So let's take a look. So in this here, it's going to be the first coordinate, the x-coordinate of A, which is x1, plus, and then the x-coordinate of point C, which is x1 plus x2 all over 2. Okay, now this whole thing is going to be divided by 2, because remember back, if you think about the formula, it's the average of the x's here. So that's what we're looking at first. I'm going to do the same thing for the average of the y's. So here we'd have y1 plus, and then y1 plus y2 all over 2. And then the whole thing is the average of the y, so we divide the whole thing by 2. Now, technically that's correct right here, but we want to go ahead and simplify our answer because that is kind of messy here. So what we need to do here is we need to combine the two fractions in the numerator. So first we're going to need to go ahead and find a common denominator between those two. In this case, for both fractions, the numerators, the fractions in the numerators will be, common denominators will be 2. So that means that this first term here, x1, I'm going to have to go through and multiply by 2 over 2, which means that it's going to become 2x2 over 2. 2x1 over 2 plus, and then the other one stays the same because it's already got the correct denominator there. Okay, and then for the other one over here, I'm going to do the same thing. Its common denominator will have to be 2 up top, so this also becomes 2y1 over 2 plus y1 plus y2 over 2. Now the thing that I did forget here, which I should go back and change here, is that this whole numerator is still divided by 2, so don't forget that was up here, this thing. Okay, same deal with this one. Okay, so I'm going to put parentheses here just to make sure that it's clear what we're talking about. Okay, but that's still pretty messy as it is right now. Oh, my mistake there. All right, so let's go ahead and scroll down a bit here. Let's see what we can look at next. Okay, so here, if I want to go ahead and simplify the numerators on both of those coordinates here, I'm going to end up with 2x1 plus x1 plus x2 all over 2, and then that whole thing was still divided by 2. We can't forget that. We'll deal with that denominator in just a second. Okay, but over here, if we take a look at this, it's going to be the same deal. We've got the common denominator, so we can write it as 2y1 plus y1 plus y2 over 2, and once again, that whole thing is divided by 2 as a compound fraction. Okay, now if we want to go ahead and simplify that, before we can get rid of the compound fractions within that the coordinates there, I'm going to go ahead and just combine like terms in the numerators of both coordinates. So we'll have 3x1 plus x2 over 2, okay, and that's divided by 2, okay, comma, and then the other one would be 3y1 plus y2 over 2, and once again divided by 2. Now if you remember back to dealing with compound fractions, or more specifically looking at doing division with fractions, remember that dividing by a fraction is the same thing as multiplying, in this case the numerator, by the reciprocal of the denominator. Now remember, reciprocal means if, in this case, the denominator is 2, the reciprocal of 2 is 1 over 2. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and write that out just so we can kind of see it here. Okay, so I have x1 plus x2 over 2, and this was the numerator, and I'm going to be multiplying by the reciprocal of 2, which is just 1 over 2. Okay, so this is still just the coordinate, the x-coordinate here. Okay, same deal on this side, 3y1 plus y2 over 2, and I'm going to multiply that also by 1/2. Now remember, with fractions, when you multiply, you just multiply straight across, numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. So here we just end up with 3x1 plus x2 over 4, and over here we have 3y1 plus y2 over 4. Now this right here, this is going to be our new midpoint between points A and C. Okay. Now to find the other one, we do the same thing, but instead we would use point C and point B. Okay. So I hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions.